Hi, my name is Willow, and today I am making a video all about one of my favorite authors, Adam Silvera. So if you aren't aware of who Adam Silvera is, he wrote More Happy Than Not back in 2015, I believe. And yeah, 2015, had to double check. And he also wrote History's All You Left Me, which came out earlier this year, and later on this year he is coming out with another book called They Both Die at the End, and I'm so excited for it. So today I really wanted to talk about and break down why I love him so much, and also why he's now one of my auto-buy authors, and one of the 3 contemporary auto-buy authors, because I don't read a lot of contemporary, and I mean, though More Happy Than Not definitely does have sort of dystopia, utopia sort of feel to it, it's still, I guess, classified as a contemporary, but regardless of that, it's just wonderful to find an author who is so absolutely excellent in that genre, because along with Jenny Han and Rainbow Rowell, like, damn, he's great. So this video is sort of going to be divided into, I guess, 2 parts, but sort of like sub-bits of those parts along with them. But the first bit that I'm going to talk about is the sort of craft of his books, like how the writing is and how he develops story and everything and that sort of stuff. And the second bit will be sort of like diversity and representation, and including features that people have that 1, don't get enough representation in books, or 2, are just things that you don't normally see in books, but you definitely see them in everyday life and in people. So first, to talk about his writing. So I might be talking about some spoilers, but beforehand I will warn when I start talking about a spoiler. But anyway, I wanted to just start talking about how he sort of organizes his books almost. So in More Happy Than Not, something that really struck me as really interesting was how memory played a role in it, and that's very vague because in case anyone hasn't read this book, I don't want to spoil it. But along with how memory and the act of remembering plays out in this novel, he really plays with time and timelines. And this is something that is also very prevalent in History's All You Left Me, because this is told between 2 different periods of time. One is before and the other is after, and before starts taking place 2 years before after, and after takes place from November of 2016 onwards. So before takes place throughout 2014 and onwards to 2016, whereas after goes from November 2016 to the start of 2017. And I just love how he's used something that's usually so like, oh, we're just gonna go straight forward, maybe have some flashbacks or whatever, maybe tell this in 2 point of views, whatever. He uses something so like general as time and having things in chronological order, or maybe not even chronological order, and he really like makes it his own almost. Like you'll get this if you've read the books, but if you haven't, it's a bit hard to explain. But he really utilizes the way he's telling the story within the order of events so wonderfully, and it's something that I find so admirable, because in one of my work in progresses there's a big bit with memory and not being able to remember and that sort of stuff, and having the kind of flashback thing. So it's really, really wonderful to see him tell his stories this way and to have it be done so effectively and wonderfully. So I really, really love that. Something I also really love about his writing is that it's just good. Like, he just has a natural talent for writing, it seems, and obviously I see on Twitter that he really pushes himself to write and to be good at his craft, I guess. But, it does take a lot of practice, and, he definitely has the, like, persistence and, like, perseverance, I guess, to be able to make it something that he sees as good and whatnot. And I just absolutely love his writing. I think that it's something that flows so wonderfully, and I think that even though there's not a lot of flowery language at all, it just feels so beautiful, and I think that the beauty is in the fact that he's able to take modern storylines and not over-explain them or use a bunch of big words to try to make it sound like something else. He's really, you know, making beauty out of the language that we use every day, and almost out of like sheer minimalism and simplicity. He's able to make such wonderful words and stories, and it's just so lovely. Like, I really, I'm just like gushing, and it's probably not entirely coherent, but I just really genuinely believe that he is one of the best authors out there. And yes, his books have a lot of hype, but I don't think they have enough attention that they should have. Like, why isn't this guy getting as much attention as like John Green or someone? Like, his stories just like touch my soul, I guess, and his stories make me want to write, and his writing is, like I just said, it's phenomenal, and it's not something that's phenomenal in the way that you'd call like Charles Dickens with his bloody over explanations phenomenal, or the way that you'd call something like Milk and Honey phenomenal, which is minimalistic, modern, and simplistic. He somehow is able to, I don't even know if this is like, if I'm just crazy or something and I'm just spewing this shit, but this is how I see it. He's able to make things like Charles Dickens over explanations and the simplicity of modern poetry sort of come together, but also not have it be convoluted and have it be something that's easy to read, but also at the same time is incredibly moving and touching. And I feel like I'm sounding like a broken record, but I just absolutely love his writing so much. And yeah, I definitely do sound like a broken record, but it's just great, and I love how he structures his stories, and I'm so excited to read They Both Die at the End, because I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's gonna do with this new one, because for the two books that he has written, they're very different in their presentation and the way the story is told, and I really like that, especially since it's effective. Like, he's not just doing like random shit and trying to be like quirky or something. He's able to make it work, which is amazing. And I must also mention, in Because You Love to Hate Me, the villain anthology that came out earlier this summer that featured 13 authors and 13 booktubers, his story was tied for first place with Cindy Pond's story for me, and I was absolutely amazed by the villain he was able to create and how villainous his villain actually was, and how he was able to create this sort of like futuristic, maybe even dystopian kind of setting, like a sci-fi sort of thing. And, you know, his readers are used to reading like contemporary sort of stuff with, you know, obviously, like I said, with More Happy Than Not, there is a little bit of a dystopian sort of theme, but it's really just contemporary, and I just thought that was amazing to see how flexible he is as an author and how he's still able to do all of that stuff effectively and wonderfully. And yeah, I just admire him so much, and like I said, his work really touches my soul, and I'm really pleased to have picked up one of his books and to have been introduced to his books through the wonderful community of BookTube. So I'm going to move on to the second section of this video, and that is talking about representation and diversity in his work. So Adam Silvera is definitely known for writing wonderful LGBT+ characters and doing a great job of it. And I know with More Happy Than Not, it was more of an LGBT+ story than History Is All You Left Me, because the characters were more struggling with their sexuality in that book than in History Is All You Left Me, though there is still some struggle. However, I'm not entirely sure if they are both classified as LGBT+ reads, though the main characters are LGBT+. I am not entirely sure what the definition of an LGBT+ book is and what the overall content and theme of a novel has to have to be put into that category, but I just wanted to say that as a queer individual, I'm just really happy to have these books by him, where it's not just like the gay best friend, and to have real stories about LGBT plus people that isn't just centered around their sexuality. Like, even with More Happy Than Not, most of that is talking about how the character struggles with his sexuality, but at the same time, it's not just that. It's so much more, and this character lives his life dealing with it, but also at the same time, he's living his life, and you can definitely see that, and it's absolutely wonderful, and I'm really, really happy to have these books, like I said, but it's really, really wonderful to see that these characters aren't just their sexuality for the sake of having them be their sexuality. So it's really wonderful. And I also wanted to say that not every character in his book is white. In fact, in More Happy Than Not, it mainly focused on a Latinx community. So well, I and a lot of other people really, really appreciate how he portrays LGBT plus characters and how Adam includes POC characters. I wanted to get a little bit more personal and talk about how I personally feel about how OCD and anxiety are included in the story of History Is All You Left Me. So I didn't know that that was a part of the story, and I feel like if I did know, like if I had read it on the flap or something, I would have been a little bit more turned off, because as someone who struggles with anxiety disorder and a lot of OCD tendencies, I would be very wary, because I know that a lot of people include anxiety and OCD as sort of like draw-ins for people, as like a relatability sort of thing, and just shove it into characters and just don't like write it well, and sometimes ends up even being a little bit like, not like offensive, but sort of just a little bit like hurtful, because it's not being portrayed in a very positive way. It's definitely being portrayed in a negative way, but the way that OCD and anxiety were portrayed in this book weren't portrayed in a positive or really negative way. It was incredibly neutral. And one of the things that I found out recently on Twitter was that Adam himself also struggles from OCD and anxiety, and he also struggles with the same tendencies that are in Griffin's character in this novel. And to touch upon how I'm saying that I saw these disorders in a neutral light, was the fact that they were brought out more prominently in Griffin's character in the same times that it would be more prominently brought out in a regular human being, and that is times under stress and grief and anger and sadness. Like, all of these emotions really heighten these disorders, and it wasn't shown in a bad way, like, oh, he's doing all these things but it's so bad and he has to stop and everything. And when he wasn't struggling with all of these more negatively connotated emotions, it was still a part of his character, and it wasn't shown in a positive or negative way either. It was just a part of Griffin, and Theo made an effort to, you know, help him through life as he tried to cope with having all of these OCD tendencies and everything that were a huge part of his life. So I did really, really appreciate the neutral outlook on these disorders. And of course, that comes with the fact that Adam himself also deals with these on a daily basis. And something else that was absolutely wonderful that Adam included was how Griffin stated that Theo made him feel special with his compulsions, and Wade says back to him, "Your thing, it's not healthy. I don't understand what it's got to be like in your head, but you have to do what's necessary to not be your compulsion's bitch. It's limiting your life." And I really liked the word choice in that little quote. Limiting your life, especially because afterwards Griffin has an afterthought that says, not controlling, limiting. The difference between limiting and controlling is that controlling is, well, as it is, it's something that's making every decision for you, and you have to do it because you are being controlled. Limiting is different in the sense that, you know, Griffin definitely restricts himself from doing a lot of stuff, and it's not really controlling because he's doing it to himself, but it's limiting. And I just, like that, I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but I really, really appreciated that, because personally, some of my OCD tendencies are that if I am clocking out for lunch at work for my half-hour lunch break, I have to do it on a 0 or a 5, or it's going to be weird and I'm going to feel weird and it's going to be wrong. And I also like to leave the house on a 0 or a 5, or make plans on a 0 or a 5. Those are the numbers that I prefer, and like Griffin, I prefer even to odd numbers as well. So 3, 1, 5, and 0, I guess, are my exceptions. And, you know, it is limiting. It's weird, and you know, that's just one of the things that I experience with my OCD tendencies. You know, I do have that very stereotypical one of washing your hands all the time, but, you know, I have to wash my hands a lot, which is very weird to say on camera and to put out there, but I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the portrayal of OCD and anxiety in History's All You Left Me. And yeah, so that was a very long ramble, maybe a bit messy, but I really, really wanted to talk about why I love Adam Silvera so much and talk about it in detail, and why I love his writing, and why I love the inclusivity of his novels, and why I just think that he is an absolutely wonderful author. And I think he's a pretty great person too, because I do follow him on various social media. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching. If you stuck to the end of this video, good job, because I'm sure it's going to be very, very long and maybe a bit tedious for people who don't feel the same way as me, but yeah. So once again, thank you for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. You can subscribe to my channel over here, and you can watch some of my other videos over here. And otherwise, I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!